Alright, this is Chapter 3 of Partha Dasgupta's very short intro to economics. Chapter 3 is nice and short. I estimate it'll take 10, at most 15 minutes to finish, so let's get started. Chapter 3. Communities. People throughout history have been known to devise ingenious ways to cooperate. One way is to make the benefits and burdens in one engagement depend not only on what takes place there, but also on what happens in some other arrangement. In Desta's village, the same set of households share the local commons, offer one another loans, join the idir, and help one another out in times of need. The interesting point isn't that the same group of people are in a number of long-term relationships. Who else is there to form long-term relationships with, it says in brackets, but that the relationships are tied to one another. Tied engagements. To see how ties can help, suppose that the patron-client relationship we studied in the previous chapter, the discount rate A, the patron uses to value the future benefits of cooperation with B, the client, exceeds 25% or 1/4 per year. We know that, for want of trust, the pair would be unable to form a partnership. But now imagine that in addition to the annual flow of $4,000 worth of working capital A has access to, he has access to an annual flow of a different type of working capital worth $3,000 to him. B doesn't have the skills to work with that capital, but someone named C does. The time C would need to work A's capital into a marketable product is worth $1,000 to her. Like B, person C doesn't have access to the market for products. The product can fetch $6,000 in the market, and A is in a position to procure it. A considers approaching C with a proposal to form a partnership. The $6,000 will be used first to compensate the pair. The surplus would then be divided equally between them. Each would enjoy a profit of $1,000 annually. For what values of R is a partnership between them viable? As C's motivations in the potential relationship are similar to B's in the previous example, we needn't study them again. But we do need to A's reasoning because the numbers matter. So let us start in year 0. Suppose C has adopted Grim. If A advances his capital to her but reneges on the agreement once she has produced the output, he gains $3,000, which is 6,000 minus 3,000, that year. Set against it is the loss 1,000 he would lose every year starting in year 1. That loss, calculated in year 0, is $1,000 over R. If 1,000 over R is less than 3,000, A will renege. If, on the other hand, 1,000 over R exceeds 3,000, A can do no better than to adopt Grim himself. Since 1,000 over R exceeds 3,000, if and only if R is less than a third, approximately 33%, the pair are able to form a long-term relationship if A's discount rate is less than 1/3 per year. So suppose R is less than 1/3, then A is able to form a relationship with C, but not with B. There's a wasp trying to fucking sniff around my hand, which I'm not appreciating. Anyway, it's gone now. So suppose R is less than 1/3, then A is able to form a relationship with C, but not with B, as R exceeds 1/4, remember, and 1/3 exceeds 1/4. We are now able to show that A could form a relationship with B if the three were to tie the pair of undertakings. Let the proposal be to create both partnerships, but with the understanding that if any party in any year were to act opportunistically, both relationships would be terminated. In order to formalize this, let the rule of behavior adopted by B, respectively C, now read begin by cooperating with A and C, respectively B, can continue to cooperate so long as no one has broken their agreement, but cease cooperating with everyone following the first defection by anyone in either relationship. Similarly, let the rule of behavior adopted by A now read begin by cooperating with B and C, and continue to cooperate so long as no one has broken their agreement, but cease cooperating with everyone following the first defection by anyone in either relationship. Each of the parties has adopted Grim once again, but Grim here comes with an added sting. It's easy enough to confirm that B would adopt Grim if A and C adopt Grim, and that C would adopt Grim if A and B adopt Grim. The interesting exercise is to determine A's incentive to cooperate if B and C adopt Grim. As both clients would terminate their relationship with him if he behaved opportunistically with either, A would defect from both relationships if he defects at all. What remains is to calculate A's losses and gains if he defects from both relationships in year 0. If he does, he gains $7,000 now, which is $4,000 from his partnership from B, and $3,000 from his partnership with C. Set against that is the value of all future benefits from cooperation he will have to forego. That loss is 1,000 plus 1,000 over R. It follows that A can't do better than to adopt Grim himself, since if 7,000 is less than 2,000 over R. which is to say if r is less than 2 over 7. Since 2 over 7 exceeds 1 over 4, it lies between 1 over 4 and 1 over 3, the condition under which A and B are able to cooperate is weaker. Suppose r is less than 2 over 7 per year, but greater than 1 over 4 per year. By tying the relationships, both can be created, whereas if they are kept separate, only the one between A and C can form. The intuition behind finding it is clear. A faces greater temptation to defect from his agreement with B than the one from C, which is why the circumstances under which a relationship can form with B are more restricted than they are with C. 1/4 is less than a third. By tying the two relationships, A's temptation to break his relationship with B is reduced, as 2 over 7 exceeds 1 over 4. While C doesn't lose from his move to tie the partnerships, she doesn't gain either. Only A and B gain, so B has every reason to offer solidarity to C, whom she now regards as a professional comrade. B may even offer a small compensation to C so as to give her a positive incentive to agree to having the two partnerships tied. In return, C promises to stick by A should A mistreat her. He doesn't do that, of course, but only because he is smart enough to know that C would break up their relationship if he did. Further refinements are needed when people who wish to trade with one another are separated by distance. Community responsibility systems in Italy during the 12th and 13th centuries helped people to obtain credit and insurance. Transgressions by a party were met in a collective way. The group to which the injured party belonged imposed sanctions on the group of which the transgressor was a member. In such arrangements, it is communities, not individuals, that acquire a reputation for honesty. Tying in relationships in this matter creates incentives for members of a peer group to keep an eye on one another. The institution reduces the costs people incur in keeping an eye on each other. The drawback of tied relationships among people having different interests is that they require further coordination. If, in our numerical example, B possessed not only her own skills but those of C as well, and if she had the time to work for A in both ventures, it would be simpler for A to offer both partnerships to B, with the proposal that they be tied. The relationship would involve only A and B, requiring less coordination. Networks. The distinction between personal and impersonal transactions is not sharp. Even in a sophisticated market, such as modern banking, reputation plays a part, such as the credit rating of the borrower. But the distinction is real. Meeting new people in Becky's world is often accidental, but people spend resources in order to make new acquaintances. Why? One reason is that new acquaintances may be in a position to provide information. One can think of interpersonal networks as a system of communication channels linking people to one another. Networks include as tightly woven a unit as a nuclear family or kinship group, and one as extensive as a voluntary organization such as Amnesty International. We are born into certain networks and enter new ones. Personal relationships, whether or not they are long-term, are emergent features within networks. The clause, personal relationships, as the notion of networks, is central. It involves trust without recourse, and to an external enforcer of agreements. Scholars have argued that civic engagements in Becky's world and communal activities in Desta's world heights position to cooperate. The idea is that trust begets trust, and that this gives rise to a positive feedback between civic and communal activities and a disposition to be so engaged. That positive feedback is, however, tempered by the cost of additional engagements, time, which typically rises with increasing engagements. The economist Albert Hirschman has observed that trust is a moral good in that it grows with use but decays with disuse, which means that if we don't need to economize on trust in the way that we need to with bread and butter goods, like bread and butter. Trust shares this feature with skills. The more one practices a skill, the better one gets at it. Weak ties. Relationships can be strong or weak. One can be misled by this into thinking that weak ties are not valuable. In fact, they can be very valuable. While working at his previous job, Becky's father learnt through word of mouth that the firm he now works for was looking to hire someone with his qualifications. There is much empirical evidence that weak ties are useful because they can connect people to a wide variety of other people, and so to a large information base. Engagements among other people with weak ties in Becky's world are untied. Becky's father has little to do with the Parent-Teacher Association, of which her mother is an active member. What a stereotype. Similarly, Becky's mother has nothing to do with the Association of Lawyers to which Becky's father belongs. Moreover, neither the PTA nor the Bar Association play any role in their social life. Strong ties. In Desta's world, I think it's kind of funny there because it implies that it's some kind of professional association that Becky's father belongs to, whereas actually a bar association, which I find amusing. That's good. That's good. I enjoyed that. But moving on, strong ties. In Desta's world, ties are mostly strong because they involve tight engagements in long-term relationships. As this sort of arrangement sets limits on the range of people with whom people are able to do business, it offers few opportunities to material advancement. In Chapter 6, we will confirm that strong ties among kinship hinder progress in the contemporary world by limiting the amount of insurance coverage households are able to obtain, by maintaining a low rate of return on investment, and by stimulating fertility. But if used wisely, strong ties can be of help in seeking economic opportunities in the outside world. Consider migration. One enterprising member of the rural community moves to the city, supported by those with whom he has strong ties at home, while he searches for work. He is followed by others in a chain-like fashion, as information is sent home of job prospects. Migrant workers even recommend village relations to their bosses. Bosses, in turn, favor their employees' kin, because doing so reduces the risks involved in hiring people they don't know. This would explain why city mills in poor countries have been found to employ disproportionate numbers of workers from the same village. Markets and communities are capable of functioning in such ways as to offer mutual benefits. Why do networks in Desta's world operate along ethnic or kinship lines, and why are they multi-purpose and dense, unlike the specialized professional networks such as those of academic economists and psychotherapists in Becky's world? Our previous analysis offers an answer. As membership is defined by birth, entry into ethnic or kinship networks is impossible, nor is exit possible. Moreover, membership is easily verifiable. Proximity within the village enables individuals to know one another's characteristics and dispositions well. Consequently, people there don't suffer much from a problem known in the insurance industry as adverse selection. In the insurance context, firms are said to face a problem of adverse selection when people who are bad risks are indistinguishable from people who are good risks, and are able to displace the latter. Proximity within the village also enables people to observe one another and see what they are about. Consequently, people there don't suffer much from a problem known in the insurance industry as moral hazard. In the insurance context, firms are said to face a problem of moral hazard when insurees don't take the precautions against bad outcomes that may have been agreed upon. Tied to long-term relationships make the networks multi-purpose and dense. In contrast, people enter and exit professional networks out of choice, with the result that the networks have sharp, limited goals. Membership doesn't impose constraints on what people can do with the other aspects of their lives, such as where to shop, what to eat, and which school to send their children. We shouldn't be surprised that the networks people bequeath their children in Desta's world frequently amount to ethnic networks, for who else is there in rural societies with whom one can form links? However, even though it is true that exit from one's ethnicity or kinship is literally impossible, children do have a choice of not using the networks they have inherited. Why then do people maintain so many inherited networks in Becky's world? The reason they do is that one can't costlessly redirect relationships once they have been established. Such investments are specific to the relationships. Moreover, as trust begets trust, the cost of maintaining relationship declines with repeated use. Witness that we often take our closest friends and relatives for granted. The benefits from creating new relationships are low if one has inherited a rich network of relationships, which is another way of saying that the cost of not using inherited networks is high. Outside opportunities have to be especially good before it is in someone's interest to cease making use of inherited links. This explains why we maintain so many of the relationships we have inherited from our family and kinship, and why norms of conduct pass down the generations. We are, so to speak, locked in from birth. That is page 71, which concludes chapter 3 of whatever the book is called, Short Introduction to Economics. Next we'll be reading chapter 4, which is a little longer, so we'll be taking a reasonably lengthy break before moving on to that. So we'll stop the recording for now. 14 minutes, so that's within the confines of 10 to 15 that I predicted earlier on. Perfect. Goodbye.